Hi, my name is Neil Dambra. I'm working today with my buddy Jim Hudson. He and I developed this disc golf turf system over the last couple years, and he's going to help assemble it today. Cody's going to be doing the heavy lifting. Not that there's that much heavy lifting. This is pretty much two old guys like me and Jim could put this together ourselves if we need to, but it's great having Cody here. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. So today we're going to show you how to build what we think is one of the best, most versatile tee boxes developed in the sport of disc golf. We call it the double frame tee box, and if they're built correctly, they need very little maintenance. Maybe once every year or two you might want to go in and flatten out some of the sand. But been very versatile, very inexpensive, and real easy to build.
Build your frames. You'll have an inner frame and an outer frame. The inner frame will have struts to prevent bowing when it's filled with sand. Be sure to leave an unobstructed gap, minimum of 1 inch between frames. Choose your tee pad position. Place your inner frame in exact position and level as necessary using leveler pieces. Make sure your levelers are long enough to seat both the inner and outer frames. Seal gaps with local dirt and then place the outer frame roughly in position. Fill the inner frame with sand. Compact the sand thoroughly, especially in and along the edges of the front third of the box. Remove the outer frame and clean the edges around the inner frame. Place your turf over the inner frame, leaving an equal amount of excess turf around the perimeter. Place your outer frame over the assembly and press down evenly on all sides and adjust as necessary until you have a tight fit and a taut top surface. Fasten the entire unit together by driving screws through the sides of the outer frames and into the inner frame. Your pad is now playable, but you'll want to trim excess turf and backfill around the pad edges, especially in the front and back. Another advantage of these tee pads is their portability. They can be disassembled and then reassembled at a new location in just a few hours.
Now, to build one of these double frame disc golf tee boxes, you're going to need some simple tools, nothing complicated. You got a couple shovels, we have a tamper here, an electric drill so you can assemble the frame on site. Need your screws. You can look at the quantity list that's attached to this video. Got your tape measure, you got a couple rakes. Real important, the level. And that's really all that's needed.
Once you have chosen the general area for your tee pad, find the spot that's as level as possible. If minor leveling is required, place wood shims or levelers at corners or along the side rails. Keep in mind that both the inner and outer frames will rest on the levelers, so they must be long enough to accommodate both the inner and outer frames. If major leveling is required, some structural and groundwork will need to be done before starting your tee pad. Double frame tee pads can be built to various sizes. I use 6 foot by 12 foot as a good standard size. I would not recommend going less than 5 by 10. If you are a good enough carpenter, you can consider doing shapes other than rectangles. Just remember that the outer frame will need to snap fit over the inner frame and that your turf will also need to be cut to that same shape. Use ground contact treated 2x4s. They can provide up to 20 years of service under normal circumstances. Frames can be pre-cut and then assembled on site. The outer frame's inner dimension must be at least 1 inch larger than the inner frame's outer dimension all around. This gap is where the turf edges will squeeze between the two frames. The 2-inch side of the 2x4 will make ground contact, and the 4-inch side will contain the sand fill. Brace the corners enough to provide adequate corner strength while moving frames during assembly. Once the entire pad is complete, it will be structurally monolithic, and the braces will absorb very little impact, so overbracing is not necessary. Bracing may be done using various types of hardware as long as you leave no obstruction in the turf crimping area. Be sure to use horizontal struts on your inner frame. On smaller pads, one strut is adequate. If you skip this step, the weight of the sand will bow out your inner frame and the outer frame will no longer fit. If you are transporting pre-assembled outer frames, you will want to add a temporary strut for stability since the corner bracing alone will not be of adequate strength. The temporary strut will be removed from the outer frame before final assembly.
This is our turf. We'll see what we have here. It's a nice piece of remnant. This one looks beautiful. If I was cooking a steak, I would say this is pretty much a prime rib. This is athletic turf. It's about a ½ inch. There's a whole variety of different kinds of turf. So this disc golf turf, as you can see, has holes on the bottom. That's where the water drains through. And the surface here, there's all different kinds of surfaces. This one happens to be what they call pseudo-natural. They put in some brown flecks of grass, so to speak, or turf, to make it look natural. So it's got a green and brown feel to it. Very nice piece of turf. So this is what we're going to work with today.
To get answers for any questions you might have about artificial turf, I recommend sportsfacility.com. They have a large inventory of new and used turf in a variety of weave styles. They always have 7x15 tee pads ready to ship, or they can quote you custom or bulk sizes. You can visit the disc golf tee pad section of their website to see what is currently available.
So the other element to one of these double frame tee boxes is sand. Now the finer the sand, the better. It drains better and it compacts better. If you use sand with rocks in it or that's dirty, you may find yourself having a few little low spots. So the finer the sand, the better. So essentially what we're building here is a miniature playing field. We're using athletic turf. We're building it the same way an athletic field would be built, but it's just on a lot smaller scale. So disc golfers, they're making an athletic move. They're going to have an athletic field to throw off of. It stays dry and stays compact and it'll last a long time. Now before you put your outer frame on, of course the turf goes on first, but you want to make sure your gutter here is clear so you don't have any problems putting the outer frame on. Okay, so we have our carpet in place, and take a couple minutes to do that. You know, see how Jim was made sure we had a little extra on the extra carpet we have on one side and on the back. This way, when you cut it back, which we end up doing, you don't have to cut all four sides. So now we're going to just simply step on this outer frame. Once you have it lined up, boom. You literally could play this box right now. We're not going to, because we're going to screw the frame in. Very important. One thing you want to remember when you put your final screws in to make this a monolithic structure is you want to know where those screws are, because you're going to backfill along the edges. So my suggestion is you put one in the middle on the two sides, and then you split the difference and put another in the middle. You only really need 3 screws on each side. Why? So when you're trying to take this thing apart, if you ever have to, you know where your screws are. I think maybe between both. Okay, so your last step, you come in and backfill your edges. This is important because remember you have sand in there, and if any gaps are at the bottom, you might have some sand leakage. Generally the sand stays pretty firm, but it's good to give it a little bit extra help by filling in the sides.
I hope this video provides all the information you need to build these quick wicking, firm, and low maintenance throwing surfaces. If you have additional questions, feel free to contact me at neildambra200@gmail.com. Never again let restrictions on the use of concrete or other limiting factors stop you from detailing out your dream course with top quality tee pads.